morning, good afternoon, good evening. In a leaked cable back to Washington, the US Ambassador to Zimbabwe, Chris Dell, 2004 to 2007, said Morgan Tsvangirai is a flawed figure, not readily open to advice, indecisive, and with questionable judgment. And he predicted that if he was to get in power, he would be an albatross around the nation's neck. It must be remembered here that that cable was written some point between 2004 and 2007. Morgan Tsvangirai did not get into office until the signing of the GNU in 2008 and was sworn in February 2009. So this assessment was made on the basis of the ambassador meeting Morgan Tsvangirai, no doubt, a few times during that period, 2004 to 2007. The cable was not meant for public consumption. It was meant for the American government. He was just reporting back to his principals back in Washington. When the cable was leaked in WikiLeaks, many Zimbabweans dismissed it. Even Morgan Tsvangirai himself and his cronies dismissed the comment as unfounded. The truth of the matter is, history, time has proven beyond all doubt that the ambassador was right. Here is a video, an interview that Morgan Tsvangirai gave. According to the video, it was 3 years into the GNU. And in it, the individual himself is clearly showing exactly what the ambassador had feared.
%87% of the people still want to vote. And I can tell you they still think and still believe they have invested over the last 10 or 15 years into a democratic process. And it is that democratic vote that they believe they've been able to deal with the question of change. My party has had to deal with the question of in joining with ZANU-PF, have we been equalized in the eyes of the people? Or it is the question of high expectations on my party in government, but also having the limitation of a coalition, which is really conflict of vision, conflict of policy. And so the people's expectations were too high. And because they are too high, they expected delivery from a coalition. And yet the coalition has got its own limited capacity to deliver.
And the coalition was supposed to be a
But it is highly ironic for a prime minister of a country not to be shown on the television for 3.5 years. 3.5 years.
He's also been complaining that he's not implementing the GPAs.
It's a frustrating experience. We signed an agreement in 2008. We formed a government in 2009. And over a period of 3.5 years now, it has been frustrating to see some of the ministers from ZANU-PF refusing to implement what has been agreed, even at the direction of the principals, even at the direction of cabinet. So
that is what Morgan Tsvangirai himself believed. Actually, the primary purpose of the GNU was to implement the democratic reforms which were meant to end or to dismantle this ZANU-PF dictatorship. In the 5 years of the GNU, Morgan Tsvangirai and his colleagues failed to submit even one reform proposal. That is the tragedy. This was the golden opportunity to transform Zimbabwe from the de facto one-party state dictatorship, implement the reforms so that we could get the country back on track as a healthy and functioning democracy. Morgan Tsvangirai and his colleagues failed to implement even one token reform. He keeps complaining about, it is frustrating that the GNU or the government was not implementing, or some of the ZANU-PF ministers were not implementing things agreed in cabinet. Yes, one accepts that there was frustration. But in this particular case, he had another alternative. If Mugabe and his ZANU-PF were refusing to implement what the GNU was supposed to implement, he only had to table his concerns with SADC, because SADC was the guarantor of the global political agreement of 2008. Morgan Tsvangirai and his MDC never once complained to SADC. The only one time where Morgan Tsvangirai threatened to walk out of the GNU was when Mugabe refused a permission to move into Zimbabwe House. That issue was settled when Mugabe bought Tsvangirai the $4 million mansion in Highlands. And ever since that, Morgan Tsvangirai and his MDC colleagues never complained until to the very end of the GNU. Earlier on in this video, he was confident his party would win. They went into the 2013 elections with not even one token reform implemented. SADC leaders tried to warn him that it was folly to participate in the flawed elections with no reforms implemented. He ignored the warning. And we all know what happened. There is no doubt that Morgan Tsvangirai and his MDC friends wasted the golden opportunity to implement the democratic reforms which would have transformed Zimbabwe completely. And the reason for it was greed, pure and simple. Morgan Tsvangirai and his friends could not resist the golden opportunities, the trappings of high office that Mugabe offered them. And it was this that stopped them implementing the democratic reforms. So the 5 years were wasted because MDC leaders sold out. All the top brass in the MDC got the trappings of high office, which included the E-Class Mercedes-Benz, the very generous salaries and allowances. And like I pointed out before, for Morgan Tsvangirai, the US $4 million mansion in Highlands. And recently it has started to come out that they got a lot more than that. They also got farms. Here is one individual speaking about Morgan Tsvangirai and his fellow MDC leaders, some of the benefits they got.
Bhazi rikafira musango, munhu asina kwaari kuenda bhazi mumu anofara kuti ndo patopumba pake nditori nevamwe vangu pana. Munhu anorwadziwa nekurara musango munhu ane kumba.
Taibadana kumba kwangu.
But amana kumba kugumbezi rangu reria. Mana so. But munhu asina imba atete kurara musango. So opposition inomake sure kuti vanhu vaya vawane minda. But may he so rest in peace Tsvangirai. Prazi ravo vanga vainaro. Chamisa anaro.
Anaro Tsvangirai. Ane family.
Kana azoramba. Ndoenda newe.
Rikupi.
Ane farm.
Ribi.
I know madress munhu anetsa kuti focha but anaro. Chakudza off camera.
Okay.
Ane mine. Ane
Ane
makaseo.
Yeah?
Yes. Biti. Ane prazi. Hauna kumboona ere picture ya Biti achitenga mombe kuna Temba Mliswa. Dzekuisa kuprazi. One of the biggest beef producers in the Matabeleland region, the Washman Ngwe.
Okay.
Yes, ane prazi. Anautenga beneficiary land reform. But what they did is to discourage their people from acquiring my farms. Because why is that munhu akaona something chapiwa nehurumende achapikisa.
Are you for real, Mr. Ganishai?
Nomubvunza Washman Ngwe kuti haasi kuita beef here, producer beef here paprasi. Ndonyaendanetsana upo ching'ono gore rere. Handiti kuti stand ya upo ching'ono standard ine painogumira. But vakatotaura nehurumende nemasabhuku ikaextendwa because aita god.
So, if the truth be told, what Ambassador Dell predicted when he said that Morgan Tsvangirai, in this case here, could have included the MDC leadership completely, would be an albatross, a milestone around the nation's neck, has come true. The tragedy for Zimbabwe is that even now, with the benefit of hindsight, there are still millions of Zimbabweans who still do not believe it, who still continue to follow MDC leaders blindly out of what one can only call as personality cult mentality. Zimbabwe is a failed state. And there are many factors that have contributed to it. Yes, we had a liberation party in the name of ZANU-PF, whom the nation had trusted to deliver freedom, justice, and economic prosperity for all. They sold out. The nation then decided we need to elect an opposition who will implement the democratic reforms to end this ZANU-PF dictatorship. That opposition is too sold out. And the failure by the people to accept that political reality, even after 26 years of MDC, Triple C on the political platform, and not even a token reform implemented, is another tragedy for Zimbabwe. We are not going to get out of this hellhole until we learn, until we end this personality cult mentality. Leaders are mere mortals. Why some people refuse to accept that Chamisa lied to them when he said he had plugged the vote-rigging loopholes, and subsequent events show that he had lied. Beggars belief. But a nation that can be so blind, so naive, will never be a prosperous nation. Because democracy demands that the people must be educated, knowledgeable, objective, and diligent in carrying out the basic fundamental task that the citizens must carry out, i.e., hold the leaders to account. And when you've got a personality cult mentality, you are a curse to the nation. Think about it. Thank you very much. Have a good evening.